Taki here, ready for 3-Minute Coach Part 2. Really pumped about today's session. It's been a pretty eventful morning, both for myself and for Marcus. It's just gone midday here. I'm in Hawaii right now with the fam, and so in exactly 9 minutes' time, when this webinar finishes, apparently I need to check out of this hotel room, and we're going off somewhere fun for the kids. We've got 2 or 3 days there, and then we're off to Maui to have a good time. Just had a surf with a mate of mine, Alexi, who's a copywriter, and who you might have seen on one of the Black Belt Intensive videos. So we're having a good time. I'm going to bring Marcus on in just a second, but before I do, let's just make sure that the technology is doing what it's supposed to do. Can you find the question box, please, inside GoToWebinar, and tell me if you can hear my voice and if you can see my iPad on your screen. Raj has just beat me to it. Legend, bro. Thank you. That's great, everybody. Perfect. So I'm having a Hawaii time. Marcus is having a quintessentially Australian time. Marcus, I'm going to unmute you, mate, and check in.
Hey there, Taki.
So hey, man, what time is it right now in Melbourne?
It's 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right, it's 8 a.m. And so what happened to you on the way to work?
Yeah, so coming into work at 6:30 this morning, I had a run-in with a kangaroo, or a kangaroo had a run-in with me. And
with you or with your car?
Yeah, well, with my car, yeah. So, out of nowhere, this kangaroo sort of jumps into the middle of the road, and I slammed my brakes, and luckily I wasn't going too fast, but he was, and he just came straight at me and just hit the car and bounced off.
Dude, it's not cool.
No, it wasn't very cool at all. So luckily, I mean, it wasn't hard enough to sort of set off the airbags or anything, but certainly gave me a fright.
Yeah, and gave him a fright, and eventually he got up and bounced away, and everyone's okay,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah, everyone's okay as far as we can tell.
Cool, man. Well, listen, really grateful for your, kind of part 2 for coming back to teach us a little bit more. If you are, if this is your first 3-minute coach training and you missed the first one, I'm going to do a quick recap. You probably know that we've got 3 webinars together. Our last webinar 2 weeks ago was the 3-minute coach system, where we overviewed the 6 steps in the model, exactly how to do it, at an overview, and did a quick demo, I think, with Nicole. And she kind of saw that our job really isn't about, it's not just about reducing session time, because that, and that's great for you, maybe or maybe not good for your client. What we're actually trying to do is to dramatically increase value, and it turns out the best way to increase value is to remove anything that isn't value, and the natural byproduct of that is that session time drops. So we talked about the system. Right now, we're about to jump in and look at how to open your client. Session 2 is really about the start of a 3-minute coaching session. And it's funny, dude, that it takes 3 webinars to explain how to coach in 3 minutes, but that's how we roll. We're going to go deep. And I think it's totally awesome. And number 3, we're going to talk in 2 weeks' time, just before our Sydney Black Belt Intensive, about creating change, about how to get people to insight, and from insight into action and momentum. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Cool. So are you okay if I just do a 1-minute recap of last week's content?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Thanks, man. So we're really talking about increasing value. The first question was is 3 minutes real? Yes. Between 3 and 15 minutes, you can deliver real coaching value. The way we're going to do that is to remove the filler out and get to the core issue quickly. We talked about how the market is getting faster and faster and faster, and people don't really want to take more time. If they get the result quicker, they'd love that. So we talked about moving from a time-based model to a value-based model, which is expansive, effective, and fast, rather than kind of leaving you tired at the end of a coaching session. Our job really is to help go deep fast, which is what today is all about. There was a really good model that Marcus ran through about taking people from left to right, from having a block or understanding the need or having a real problem, and having them get really clear, figure out, really clear, get some momentum, and create a real practical outcome. And the model looks like this. We need to figure out what they really need, help them find an insight, and then get them into action as quickly as we can. We talked about how to start, and we're going to go deep into this today, but that really a coaching session, if it's starting with, hey, how's your week been, we're starting it wrong. And today we're going to talk a lot about the way you start a session is the way you end a session. And so if you want a session to end powerfully with momentum, it wants to start that way as well. just to allay one concern, this isn't about driving time down, it's about driving value up. So you've got tons of great stuff in your program, but your stuff's valuable, but it's not your value, is one of the takeaways that I got from Marcus last week. And it starts off with this idea called the rap sheet, which we create, we put up into the Facebook group about what's your biggest win, what are you working on, and what do you need. We talked a little bit last time about getting people out of their stuff, out of their stories, and out of scripts, and into the real crux of their issue with a technique called feedback loop questioning we're going to go deep into today. Marcus, if you want to say a quick summary of what 3-minute coaching is really about, what it'll do for your clients and what it'll do for the coach, I think that will be really, really valuable and helpful for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me that, 3-minute coach, again, like you said, Taki, is really about creating much, much more value, increasing your value and delivering that in a much more effective and efficient manner. And so for you, it's going to give you the ability to see more clients. It's also going to give you a lot more energy, because when I run these sessions, I find I end with more energy than what I started with. When, I used to do the old form of coaching, and I would, end the day just absolutely exhausted. And for your client, they're going to, they're going to be able to get on with, on with the job much, much faster. So they're going to come in, they're going to get the insights they need, they're going to get the, the core of what they need, and they're going to be able to jump out the other end with 3 clear actions to get moving fast. And so, so your clients are going to move quicker. The other thing is I find, Taki, that clients tend to follow coaches. And so if you're running, longer coaching sessions, then clients tend to follow that. Whereas when you're running 3-minute sessions, 3 to 15-minute sessions, they tend to get faster as well, not just when they're with you, but in their own, back in their own world. They start to learn to do things faster, and they start to remove this stuff called fluff, which we're going to talk about a bit today. And they start to remove it from their world. And so it has huge knock-on effects for them, really positive knock-on effects for them.
Love that. All right, mate. Well, anything that gives a coach more capacity to kind of deliver more value, look after more clients, make more money, that gives you more energy, so it's sustainable and scalable. And then anything that gets you and clients more momentum, I think is a really, really good thing. Mate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you the presenter.
Great.
And let's get into this. Can't wait. Really pumped. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you a ton.
Hey, no worries. Thank you. This is great. Excellent. So I think I'm all go now. Yeah, fantastic. So let's just step through a little bit of the process. So today, what I really want to do is take you through, losing some of the fluff and getting right to the point as fast as possible. Because, like Taki said, how you start the session is how you're going to end the session. Part of my philosophy is how you start anything is how you'll often end that thing. So we want to start really, really powerfully. And so we want to make sure that we're getting rid of the fluff right up front so that we can get to the point as quick as possible. You might remember the sort of core steps that we talked about briefly. And so today we're going to look at picture and relay, and then next week we're going to sort of finish off the whole model. But today I want to go deep with picture and relay and sort of just start to touch on the point. And so we're going to really focus on the art of the ask today and how we actually deliver, deliver your questions, how you keep clients out of the fluff. And part of that process is managing state, but really going deep into making sure we're clear about those 3 core needs that clients, that clients are looking for, and going really deep on that. So that's what we're going to play with today. Taki, one of the things I would love to know is I'd love to know how people went last week after seeing it in action and after hearing, the process. I'd love to hear how people went and what their thoughts were, and if that's okay.
Yeah, great idea. So, going to give you 15 seconds, please, right now to type into the question box either what you did or what you learned from our very first session. Ideally, what you did. If you did something, or if you kind of noticed your sessions kind of changing, or even the way you're thinking about your session changing, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, what'd you learn? What'd you notice? Even better would be what you do, but I'd love to kind of know biggest takeaways from last time. Please just take 15 seconds right now, everybody. Love to see what you got and hopefully what you did.
Excellent.
some people might be kind of hanging on for the whole system before they can do it, but I think kind of the best way to start sometimes is just to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what'd you do?
Just to give it a go.
Yeah, please.
And I think the first step, Taki, is often mindset. Just getting your head around that there's, another way and, a different way of doing it.
Totally. Carlos is saying several clients have reported they're beginning to practice less time in the office and delivering more value in their business. Carlos, that's great.
Wow.
Jackie, in the UK, I did use the 3-session prep sheet for my coaching sessions, speeded up the process already. Good job, Jackie, and you haven't even learned what to do next. I'm pumped for you. That's great.
Yeah.
Right, shorter sessions equals more value and can be a benefit. On the list to rework the framework of my calls soon. Yeah, Raj, and I know you had a quick session with Adam, and it wasn't about you getting Sherpa, was more about, so tell me how you do this so you can get a Sherpa yourself. Love that. Max's big takeaway was that time does not equal value. Love that.
That's a big one.
Wayne says, just more mindful of avoiding fluff. Totally. I mean, everybody wants to avoid fluffs, right? So I think that's just a good general principle, both in life and in coaching sessions. Hey, Marcus, quick question. When you coach over the phone or on Skype, do you sit or do you stand?
I'll often stand and walk around. I find that insights come easier if I'm moving.
I find the same.
Yeah. Not quite sure what that is, but I think it's, part of the insight thing is a right brain sort of exercise where it's about the sensory feelings in the body. And I think when you're stagnant, when you're just sitting there, it's harder to pick up what the signals are throughout your body. And I also think when you're sitting, when you're crunched up, it's also difficult because a lot of the signals come from, the other two brains that we have in our body, which is the heart and the gut. And there's been lots of research on those places, and I think when you're crunched up in a seat, it's really hard to it's harder to access those points.
Yeah, I always find that creating content, the reason I've got a stand-up desk is because I found when I sat down, my brain turned off, and the moment I move, my brain gets engaged and ideas just flow kind of almost through me. So I was curious about that. I also find that standing up makes me a little bit less patient as well. And I have a little bit more pep about me, and that kind of shortens up sessions too. Anyway, that's
it's a bit. I think it's a bit like Taki. I think it's a bit like tennis players when they're about to receive a serve. They stand on the tips of their toes and they sort of dance around. And I think it's that same sort of what you were just saying there, same sort of thing. So you're ready for it. You're ready for action. You're ready for the insight. You're ready for the information.
Love that. Okay, mate. Awesome. Let's.
Cool.
Speaking of ready for the information, let's do this.
Yeah. Let's get into it. And so, the first part is really about the picture. You want to make sure you're really diving, deep quickly to get a really clear picture. And the one thing that's going to give you a hazy picture or not allow you to see clearly what's really going on for the client. And remember, we want to try and get to, build the picture as fast as we can. And that picture is all about what's really happening here. And I'm going to talk to you about that in a moment. But I think we've got to remove all of the white noise, all of the static that clients generally come with, because it's just it's human nature that we create that. And I think we want to get in and make sure we're removing the fluff. And so really important that we're removing all the peripheral stuff around what's really, really going on. What is the picture here? Because most clients can't see what the picture is. So when they come to you, they're going to come to you with a lack of clarity, and often they'll think they have clarity, but it's your job, primarily to make sure we're giving them clarity, to helping them to see the wood through the trees. And one of the best ways to do that, and the first things we have to do, is we have to remove fluff. And so, so really important that we get in and be able to identify what that fluff is, and be able to identify the difference between, what's important and what's just peripheral fluff. And so, we want to make sure we're going in and getting out of the chaos and taking control. The interesting part about this, and there's a few things that are a little counterintuitive, and a few things that are sort of how do I say it? counterintuitive is probably the easiest way. So when people come with fluff, I sort of look at it as they come with the chaos, because, we live in a really chaotic world at the moment. And so when clients come in, they generally bring a whole lot of that chaos with them, the chaos that they have in their world. And so what we have to do is we have to see through the chaos, and to do that, we have to take some amount of control. Now, when I learned coaching, a lot of the coaching training was about, you've got to let the client control the session. It's about following the client. It's about going wherever they want to go. And that concept is still true through this process. However, we do need to keep control of the sessions, and we need to keep the session within a parameter. If you allow the client just to go literally wherever they want to, then I guarantee you're going to be diving into fluff faster than you can say boo. So we want to make sure we do have some control of the session. We want to allow the session to go where the client needs it to go, but at the same time, we want to make sure we're keeping control, and it's the control to keep them out of the chaos and to keep them out of the fluff. And so the control is not so much controlling what you want to have happen in the session, rather controlling how the parameters of the session run, and we keep them out of that. Yeah.
Just to confirm, this sounds like not controlling the outcome and not pushing people in a certain direction, but controlling the context so that you only have conversations which are useful, not interesting. Is that right?
That's exactly right. That's a great way of putting it. We want to control the context, and so that we don't get caught in the chaos. Yeah, and that chaos ends up looking like drama. Yep, that's the sort of key format of the chaos is drama, and as humans, certainly as humans, we are addicted to drama. We've created a whole medium called television to feed this addiction, and so often in the first few sessions, we've got to get people out of that addiction and get them out of the drama, which is the chaos, and control the context. One of the ways we do that is that we look at managing the client state. So part of the control process is making sure that we're managing that client state. So and that's controlling the context so that they don't dive deeply into one state or another, but we keep them on a level playing field, and we keep them really focused on the job at hand. And so we don't necessarily dive deeply into emotion, whether it's happy, sad, whatever, or deeply dive into any sort of form of state, except for what they really need to be looking at. And I'm going to talk to you about this, now, that because there are three things that clients will generally come to you with. So when you first start talking to a client, they're going to appear with three things. And initially, they're going to start talking about stuff that's happening in their world. So they're going to deliver a whole lot of stuff to you, and stuff for me is the sort of fluff that happened this week or last week. It's recent fluff, is what I would call the stuff, and often that stuff appears as he said, she said, if only that would happen, if only this would have happened. I was driving to work today and I hit a kangaroo, right? And so, the fact that I hit a kangaroo this morning has nothing to do with this session whatsoever. Right?
I apologise for bringing that up at the start of the session. That was a crappy way, and had I been a better coach, I would have said, so, are you ready for your session today? What do you really need right now?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I took you straight to the kangaroo because I thought it was a funny story, but sorry.
Yeah, well, it was a funny story, sort of. I'm still shaking from it, unfortunately. But
dude, snap out of it. You've got to manage your state.
Exactly. I've got to manage my state. So we've got to get out of that stuff. And so the kangaroo story is a classic, story of stuff. And stuff is generally things that have appeared in the recent past. So the last couple of weeks is generally how stuff appears. And so you want to be really careful about what is stuff and what is relevant, right? And so obviously the kangaroo story is not relevant, but you want to try and extract what stuff is relevant and what is just stuff that, is the fluff, is the filler, because they're either nervous, anxious, or because they're just desperate to tell someone about something that happened to them that really isn't relevant to the coaching session at all. Yeah, if they think about stuff for long enough, what ends up happening is that they create a story around the stuff. So if they've had enough incidents at the office or at their business, if they've had enough stuff, particularly around one topic or one individual or one situation, what will happen is they'll start to create a story around it. And when we start to create stories, we drop the stuff into a deeper level of consciousness. And so we start to create this story around the things that happen. So, for example, with the kangaroo, and we may as well just use that for now. With the kangaroo, what will happen now in my mind, if I'm not careful, if I play in the fluff, is that I'll start creating a story around it. And the further away I get from that incident, the more that story becomes a perceived reality, so a perceived consciousness. Because as we move away from the past, what happens is our dramatic mind starts to build sort of drama around the incident. And the reason we build that drama is because we're trying to recruit other people. We're trying to get sympathy, or we're trying to get people to give us a like on Facebook about how cool the story was, right? And so we start to build this story, and we start to create what's called a perceived consciousness reality. Now, the police know about this perceived consciousness state, in that if there's an incident, if there's an accident, and they're interviewing the witnesses, they know that the longer it takes for them to take a statement from a witness, the less real the statement actually becomes. So, for example, if you're walking down the street and you've got a handbag over your shoulder, and some young gentleman or some young woman comes and grabs that handbag, and you have a 10-second fight with them, and you get a really good look at their face, every minute after that event, that face starts to morph. Yep. So in the first few minutes, you could draw an identikit fit of that face pretty accurately. 5 to 10 minutes later, it starts to change slightly. 10 to 20 minutes later, and it starts to look like old Uncle George, who wasn't so nice to you when you were younger. And so this story starts to be crafted based on our history, and so it becomes a perceived consciousness state. So we want to be really careful that we're not playing into people's stories, because they're not necessarily real, and they definitely don't have add anything necessarily to the coaching session.
Really
now,
cool.
Yeah. Sorry, you were going to say?
Yeah. So just to kind of help me calibrate, at the start of a session, when people either start coaching with you or at the start of a session, typically they're going to come to you with either stuff that happened or stuff that keeps happening is now kind of a drama that they've ingested, story, or script, which I heard you mention last time. And what's the danger of letting this stuff into your session? What's the kind of cost if we do?
So story and embed it even deeper. And as you said, Taki, they're going to approach with stuff, they're going to make a story, and then at the deeper level, they're going to start to run scripts. So if you play the story long enough, what ends up happening is it becomes an automatic script. And so at each level, we're looking at deeper levels of consciousness. So stuff is at the highest consciousness, at the stuff that's happening right now. Story is at a deeper consciousness and bridging into subconsciousness. And script is definitely in the subconscious realm. And so what ends up happening at the start, if we look at the screen and go from sort of left to right, is that they're going to come in with perceived consciousness. We want to get that potential consciousness, what's really going on, and then have them leave with a practical consciousness state, which is to look at, well, okay, so if you come in with stuff, what's that really all about? If you come in with story, what's the story really all about? So let's, and often I'll talk to people about listening to the words behind the words. So not actually listening to the words. So when you play with stuff, story, or script, what you're doing is you're playing into those words and into the language patterns that come from that. What you want to do is look behind what they're talking about. Yeah, look what's really going on, and so so that you can interject and stop them from playing these games. Now, sometimes it can just be that you bring it up, and that will stop them from playing in stuff, story, and script. The cool thing that happens here, Taki, is when you identify this with a client, they start to, or they stop doing it in their world, and all of a sudden they start to become 10 times more productive than they ever were. So just following this process, just removing this is going to increase your value tenfold. And they're going to go out, and so if you're not playing this game, like if you're not watching for this intently, what will happen is your sessions will elongate, your clients won't get success as fast as they could, they're not going to see the value, they're just going to keep rehashing the same thing over and over again. And at the worst case scenario, Taki, what's going to happen is it's going to bring up your stuff, story, and script. And so then both of you are playing in fluff.
Got it. And Raj has just said, letting people go into stories gives them time to use the stories as excuses about why they can't do something instead of focusing on what they can do. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So we don't want them to do that. And so, as part of this, we're tapping into things like, at the script level, we're tapping into that reptilian brain, which is really, really reactive. And at the story level, we're tapping into what's called the mammalian brain, which is the emotive brain. It's surrounded by the amygdala limbic system, and it's all about emotion. And at the stuff level, it's that primate brain, which is quite analytical. So people will logically think about it and talk to you quite logically about stuff. But again, it's just stuff. And so if we're going to take them from perceived consciousness to a practical consciousness state, all we need to do is create awareness, understanding, and insight, and that's going to help them to move on. So you don't need to deal with the story. Yep. Sometimes it's good enough just to go, do you realize that this is a story? Mm. Yep. And just to ask them, does this have any relevance to the session? So how does this relate to what's really going on for you? Because remember, at the start, we're going to talk about the 3 core needs that they have. And so if we start our sessions really positively by asking that question, what do you need right now? Then if they go into story, it's very easy to go, so how does that relate to what you need right now? Like, does that have any value right this second? And 99% of the time, they'll go, oh, no, it doesn't. Yep.
Totally.
Or they'll continue to make an excuse, and you can continue to, to identify that with them and say, look, this is just a story. It's not necessarily real. And what ends up happening is we think it looks like this, Taki. We think that there's a whole lot of stuff, a bit of story and a tiny bit of script. But really what's happening is that there's actually a tiny bit of stuff, quite a lot of story and a whole heap of script. And so we're just going to run these automated scripts that keep us locked in a place of not getting the success that we want to get. And so our job as coaches is obviously to propel them forward and get them momentum. And while you're stuck in stuff, story, script, there's no way you can get momentum because these things are getting in your road.
Great.
So I think the key with this is, when you start to remove fluff, you're going to be able to chunk your time down. When you just even identifying fluff, just going, when you're with us in a session now, just sitting there going, okay, what's stuff, what's story, and what's script here? And just identifying that is going to help you to start to chunk your time down because you're going to get very impatient with fluff very, very quickly. And so, I'd love to know where people see fluff in there, or if they notice this. Have you guys noticed story, stuff, or script in your sessions? If you think about your last couple of coaching sessions, have you seen story, stuff, and script? I'd love people to comment on that.
Great question. Cool. So you know what to do. There's a question box there. Where have you unknowingly allowed fluff into your sessions? Either stuff, things which happened, story, the kind of the drama that's surrounded, or script on ongoing patterns. Love to know. Kind of if you think about the last couple or 2 or 3 clients you've been working with, where has that come up? Raj says, early in the session, often when not enough control is taken over the agenda. Yes, anytime the agenda is loose at the start, that's exactly where it comes in. It's a little bit like David Sandler from the Sandler Sales Institute said, if you don't have a system for selling, you'll always be at the mercy of your prospect system for buying. It's a little bit like if you don't have a system for coaching, you'll always be at the mercy of your client system for running a session.
Yeah, absolutely.
Clients with low self-esteem, it comes up with, says Carlos.
Yeah.
Right, and that is script, right? That's total script.
Absolutely, that's total script.
Yeah, and if you let them stay there, that's exactly why that's exactly where they will stay.
Yeah, absolutely. And Taki, currently we're facing the most insidious and destructive epidemic that the world has ever faced, and that is a lack of self-worth. Right. So I can guarantee you people are going to be coming in with that script, whether we like it or not, and we want to make sure we're not playing with that.
Yeah, really clear. So you kind of set some boundaries around that's not what we do here. Nicole exactly says, wow, I've got a client who could fluff in her sleep, ! I don't know what to think of that. She runs the stuff and story like crazy, and I allowed her to create a habit of unloading during our sessions, so have to work really, really hard to reestablish boundaries around just delivering the story all the time. Kiri Marie, my wife, used to work with some clients who were really stuck in stuff, story, and script, and her strategy for dealing with it, Nicole, was she had a 3-minute bitch session right at the start, and she said, "Great, we've got 3 minutes to bitch about all of your stuff. Time starts now. Hit me." And literally, she'd kind of set a timer, and they had 3 minutes to whinge, and then they had to get over it. That was really interesting.
That's brilliant.
Now, that would make it a 6-minute coaching session instead of 3.
Too long in my book.
Too long. That's right. Jeff says, I substituted being nice instead of tough love. Right, you are meant to be the unreasonable friend. Jackie says, I just broke a client's script today about the fact they're not good enough as they are and are always totally trying to be what other people want instead of being herself. Change their perspective. Great. Yeah. Nicole said, love that. Yeah. Awesome. Cool, man. I think we're kind of on track here.
Yeah, and the key is that we're not counsellors. Yep. So there's this whole group of people called counsellors that are there to play in that stuff, right? And to go deep into story, to go deep into script, and to go deep into the stuff. And that's really their job to do that. And that's great. But I don't believe it's as coaches, it's not our job to play in that. Our job is to propel them forward, get them moving as fast as possible, and all of that stuff doesn't necessarily help at all.
Yeah.
And so, imagine if you could control a client state, if you could frame up the session in such a way that it's a bit like getting them onto a football field. On a football field, there are boundaries. And if you go over the boundary, there's a penalty. And so in a coaching session, there has to be the same sort of format where you create boundary. And if they go over that boundary, you bring it up and you go, no, this is not the game we're playing. And so, does this have any relevance? And what you can do is you can extract the relevance out of stuff, story, and script. I'm not suggesting that we just, throw all that away and go, don't even talk to me about it or think about it. What it's really about is to identify stuff, story, and script, and then extract what's really going on behind it. What are the words behind the words that actually have some validity in regards to the stuff that the things that you need right this minute? And so for me, it is about making sure that we're tapping into reality, making sure that we're finding really identifying what's really going on here. Now, remember, your client's not going to be able to do this for themselves. They're going to need you to be able to tap into that reality. Remember, it's a practical consciousness state is what we're looking for, not a perceived reality state or a perceived consciousness state. And most clients will come with a perceived reality about certain situations. And so what we want to do is extract that reality by going behind the words and listening to the words behind the words. And it's that thread behind. Often I look at it like a vibration behind what's really going on. So rather than listen to each word, what I'm trying to pick up on is the energy of those words. And the energy is what will often tell you what's going on behind that, rather than listening to the words, because it's really easy to get caught into the drama, right? And when you're caught in the drama, you become part of the problem. Yep, and if you're not part of the solution, you've got to be part of the problem, and so you're going to get sucked into that. So we want to make sure that we're really, finding the reality so that we don't become delusional. And clients, are coming with those delusional states about what they believe their reality is, and so we want to make sure we're not becoming part of that issue. And so a lot of the time what they're going to come in with is opinion, and we want to take them from that opinion and take them into truth. What is their truth? And helping them to really identify what that truth is for them. So our aim is to delve deeply and try and identify what that truth is, to make sure that, like I mentioned before, make sure we're seeing reality. What is the absolute reality about what's going on, and then being able to bring the truth out and talk to them about that truth, about what's really going on for them. And that's part of the insight journey. That's going to start that insight journey. It's not necessarily going to bring the absolute insight, but it's definitely going to start that process of helping them to get some clarity about their situation, to be able to to come out of your sessions crystal clear on what they need to do to propel themselves forward and to take themselves to the next level. And through that, you're going to start to uncover those insights. You're going to start to extract the things that they absolutely know are true. And so, as part of Stuff, Story and Script, we'll often go into that perceived reality state, that perceived consciousness state, because of a fear of facing the truth, a fear of being honest with ourselves about how things are, and the responsibility we've had in getting ourselves to this point right here, right now. So we want to be able to extract, the truth of what they know, and through that process, we're going to start to join the dots. And I think, deep value in a coaching session is absolutely the ability to start to join the dots, so that, as you start to join the dots, the client's going to start to see that, wow, this picture is actually an aeroplane. Oh my God, I didn't realize it was an aeroplane. I thought it was, a truck. And now I can see that, what I've got within me is actually an aeroplane, which is going to take me from A to B 10 times faster than if I was going to drive that crazy truck that I thought was what was really going on. So joining the dots is really, really important. Now I'm rushing past this a little bit, Taki, because I want to get to the key here today, which is the feedback loop questioning technique, which is going to show you how to not only manage state, but actually stay right on track, keep context, and be able to join the dots really, really fast. Because when we do, what happens is clients start to go, hang on a minute, that now makes sense, yeah? And they'll start to break free from their confusion, break free from story, stuff, and script, and they'll actually be able to start seeing what's going on for them with some crystal clarity, so that they can propel themselves forward. Now, some of the good things that come out of this is that clients start to tap into resources they never thought they had. They start to tap into a part of their brain and a part of their sensory system that's going to help them to be able to deal with any situation, any question, any issues that they face day to day. And so they're going to start to realize that they have, a really deep and profound resource system themselves. And so when they leave, they're not just only going to think that you're amazing because of the value you've provided, but they're also going to start to realize how amazing they are. So they start to become self-sufficient. They then start to coach themselves, so that, after 2 or 3 sessions of using this format, they actually start coming in with a whole different mindset. They start coming in with, being clearer about what needs to happen and what's going on, and it allows you then to create even more value by uncovering even deeper insights for them. And so there's some just amazing things that happen from you doing this process. None of which is, mainly it's about, this fast track to success, helping them to move quicker. And so what you'll find is they start to, they go from a single engine light aircraft, and eventually after 2 or 3 sessions, they become this jet fighter, where, you no longer have to drive the session, because they're going to drive it in the framework that you need it driven in through this 3-minute coach process. And so it's fascinating and amazing to watch.
So this is awesome. I want to clarify a couple of things. I know that you're moving forward, and I just want to kind of reverse for 1 sec. Is that okay?
Please. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So there's a couple of dots that I need to connect. Can you go back to your kind of slide 1 point? Yes. Right. Sorry. Sorry, not all the way back. My bad. To what's the truth? Right. See reality. So
the truth, yeah.
Yeah. In a minute, my hunch is that in feedback loop questioning, and you kind of you're going to kind of walk me through a demo, but can you just click through each of this slide and tell me what specifically, in a session, practically what happens at each of these stages? I know they're not all individual steps, but kind of give me a sense of how this might look in the real world. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So up front, what I'm trying to find is a thread of reality. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see beyond the illusion, like this truck, right? So this is a painting on a Pepsi truck. It's just a painting, right? But from this angle, it looks like the bottles are sort of being, levitating within the truck, but they're not. And so at the start of a session, that's what you're going to see. So they're going to come to you and go, blah, 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 blah. It's this, this, this. And your job is to not listen to anything they say. So from a practical point of view, once I've got what they need, and the rap sheet helps you with this, right? So it helps you to not have to sort of look through as much fog or as fluff. But what I'm trying to do is go, okay, I don't want to listen to anything you're actually saying. What I want to do is try and see beyond. You remember those pictures, Taki, where you had to sort of go blur your eyes? And all of a sudden, I don't know, a spaceship was showing or something. It's a bit like that. What you want to do is blur your hearing and go.
So basically, it's almost like when you watch a movie in a foreign language, you've got no idea what they're saying, but you totally know what they're saying.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And so just imagine that.
So this is the words between the words is what you're talking about.
This is, words behind the words. And so what you want to do is just imagine they're talking some other language and just go beyond that. So from a practical point of view, when we're looking at trying to see reality and trying to find out what the truth is, it's not what they're saying that's the truth. It's what's behind it that is the actual truth. So we're talking about the ultimate truth. And I'm using the word truth is such a bad word to use because what is true, right? And so it's the reality that's happening right here, right now, beyond the fluff. So that's what we're trying to get behind is behind that fluff. And so when we do that, what naturally starts to occur is insights. So what naturally starts to occur is, hang on a minute, what I think's really going on here is this, right? And as you start to share that, the client starts to connect with it and go, oh my God. And they start to see behind their own language patterns and go, yeah, actually, I think it's this, or I'm sensing this. And so they start to go deeper. So what will happen in a practical sense is that you'll start to see them resolve the stuff, story, and script. So they'll start to jump out of the story and go, oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, wow. Okay, and you'll see these moments of people generally, if for those coaches that use NLP, what you'll start to do is see them sort of start to look up. Their eyes will sort of, look up towards the ceiling, and they'll either look left or right depending on what side of the brain they're trying to access. And you'll just see a deeper version of thinking. Generally, when people come with stuff, story, and script, there's not a lot of thinking about it. They just dump, it's just blah, blah. I call it the blah, blah. So when I'm listening to people in that place, what I say in my head is blah, 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 blah. Now, I don't want to be rude to a client. I'm not trying to be rude, and it sounds a little bit rude, but really it's about me trying to filter that stuff out and go to a deeper place. And so, practically what you'll see them do is to start joining the dots in their head. So they'll start to look up to the ceiling. They'll start to have those aha moments where they say things like, oh, okay, yeah, wow, and you'll have some of those wow moments and those wow language, and the end result of that is, yeah, now it makes sense. Now I get it. Got it. Yeah, exactly like that. They'll just go, I got it, and so that's what will happen. And so, if you can follow that process, if you can train yourself enough to not listen to what they're saying, and again, it's this sort of counterintuitive stuff that, was counterintuitive sort of process where, you're meant to be there and be really present and listening to what they're saying. But I would encourage you to be even more present so that you're not actually listening to what they're saying. You're actually listening to the underlying meaning and the underlying truth of what they're actually saying. because just remember, clients, don't know what's going on. They have a perception of what's going on, and it's not necessarily real. And so we don't want to play in that perceived consciousness state. We want to make sure we're going deeper into a practical reality. Does that help, Taki?
Yeah, that's great, mate. Thank you. Permission to move on. Helpful.
Yeah, brilliant. Excellent. Thank you. And so all of these things that we've talked about so far is going to help us to identify the point. It's about identifying what's really going on here. What is the point of you being here in the room with me right now? Yep. And it's not to share some stuff, it's not to share a story, and it's not to tell me about your scripts or run your scripts. There's an absolute point for you being here, and let's get really clear about that. Let's identify that right now. And the rap sheet's going to help you to do that, which we'll share in more depth next week, but the rap sheet will help you to do that by trying to uncover the 3 core needs they have. But just remember, in the first 3 to 4 sessions that you have with a client, they are going to tell you what they think they need, but they're not going to tell you what they actually need because they don't know. And so the 3 core needs that they come up with are going to be filled with fluff. They're going to be full of stuff, story, and script, and it's your job to identify and clear that out. And so if you can do that, what you're going to find is that you're going to get to the point really, really quickly, and your sessions are going to be so much faster, and you're going to get results in quantum time. And so this is when 3 to 15-minute coaching sessions become an absolute reality, and you're going to start wondering what the hell you were doing with all of that rest of that time, and know that just so much fluff is in our sessions, but also in our lives. So you're going to start to become really impatient with fluff in your life when you start doing this process, as well as in your sessions, and that sometimes changes relationships and changes things in your world, but it definitely changes it for the better. So So what we want to do then is we want to make sure we're relaying that information in a really appropriate way. So it's one thing finding the point; it's another than actually being able to relay that information onto them and doing it in a way that has them feel that they came up with that information, that they have taken themselves into a practical consciousness state rather than us forcing them into it or pushing them into it. And there's a really great process we're going to work through now for the next sort of 45 minutes or so to absolutely do this. And in part it's called the art of the ask. And so the art of the ask is going to help you to get away from this blah 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 that people continually do. And I'd really encourage you to go out in the world now after today's webinar. Just see how much fluff you can find in any conversation you have or any conversations other people are having. I think one of the best ways to identify blah blah is to listen to friends talking together, or listen to people on a train, or on public transport or in a plane, or just start to eavesdrop a little bit and just start to identify, wow, look at how much fluff people are actually saying. And one of the great ways to, when you're doing that, to see that people are doing fluff is what you'll find is that people don't listen to each other. And so what happens is someone's talking about the kangaroo that they hit on the way to work, and the next person goes, oh, yeah, and I hit a cow the other day as well. You should have seen the cow. It was so big. And then the next person says, wow, God, I hit an elephant. And so everyone's trying to outdo each other in the story stuff and script stake. Because what we want people to do is we want to recruit them to our belief system or our story, and we want them to go, wow, you're amazing, Taki. That's an amazing story. Wow, you're incredible. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to recruit people to do that. So we want to get out of that blah, blah, and the art of the ask is the thing that's going to help us to do that. And it's a process that I developed over the last 15 years, and it's the simplest process in the world. And one of the hardest to master. And so I think its simplicity catches a lot of people out. So this process I'm going to introduce you to shortly is the most important process that I know. And again, it's the simplest process, but the most difficult to master. And don't let its simplicity trick you. Okay? So a lot of people get tricked by it, going, oh, it's just like this or it's just like that. And oh, yeah, it looks really easy until they actually get into it and start playing with it and realize it's not, so there's a bit of respect I have for this process. Even though it's a process that I developed, I have a real respect for it because every time I stop respecting it and think I'm smarter than it, my sessions elongate and they're not as successful as they could be. So we're going to dive into the art of the ask. And it's about going from, indirect to direct. And so, again, we were talking at the start that the first question you ask is the most important question in a session. And we've talked about that session is being really direct about a specific point. So what do you need right now? And it might be looking at the rap sheet and going, so tell me about that point, that need that you've identified here. And it's about being very direct and being very specific rather than being indirect and fluffy, which are questions like, so how's your week been? How did you go this week? What's been happening in your week? What's been happening? They're very indirect questions, and they're going to dive you straight into fluff really, really fast. I just want to, Taki, just for 1 minute, identify the process, the overall process of a session, if I may. And the way I look at it is a bit like a flight plan.
Okay.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to have 3 sections of a flight. So our coaching flight plan is going to be in 3 distinct sections. We're going to have a takeoff, we're going to have an in-flight, and we're going to have a landing. And so the 2 most dangerous parts of any flight from an aircraft point of view is the takeoff and the landing. And I think it's exactly the same in coaching. The most dangerous parts of a coaching session are the takeoff, right, at the start, and the landing. And if you don't start powerfully, then you're going to run out of runway and you're going to crash and burn in the fluff. And if you don't land properly and land really definitely and on purpose, then what's going to happen is, again, you'll end up running off the end of the runway. And rather than a flight being, 60 minutes, or in our case, 3 to 15 minutes, your flight's going to end up being 3 times as long. And I don't know about you, but if I'm on an aeroplane and I'm trying to get somewhere, the last thing I want is the pilot to come on the radio, over the speaker saying, oh, by the way, we've now got a 60-minute delay. Everyone gets upset about it, and that's exactly what happens in a coaching session. So there are 3 distinct sections that we're going to play with. There is this understanding, helping clients to understand, and there's a core focus that we're going to keep throughout the session. And these 3 sections are, at the takeoff, we're going to look at asking lots of really clever questions, and we're going to play with this process in a moment around the art of the ask. Then once we get into the in-flight, we're going to start wanting to show them what's really going on, and this is where we start to uncover the insights. And it's a bit like, once you're flying and the seatbelt sign's been turned off, then you can actually start to watch your movies or listen to music. And it's the same process here. We can start to relax a little bit and try and identify some of those things that are going on for them. And then the final bit is that we're going to come, down for our landing and really tell them what needs to happen. So this is a very prescriptive process. The cool part about it is we're going to do all of these processes through this questioning technique, which is going to run right through the whole session. It's going to be primarily focused up front here in the ask, but even in the show and the tell, we're going to show people and tell people through this process so that rather than them feeling like you've told them what to do, that they are actually going to plant a seed in their mind, and they're going to walk away, feeling that they had some part of the process and that they actually germinated that seed and created that action. And so we're going to loosely follow this. Well, we're going to follow this flight plan. And so today we're going to focus right on the ask, and then over the next week we're going to finish the show and the tell. And so in the ask, we're going to ask clever questions. In the show, we're going to ignite the aha and the insight, and in the tell, we're going to deliver that prescription. And so today I want to talk about the questioning and the process around questioning, because this is critical to help you to really chunk your time down and get to that point and relay the message. It's a process called feedback loop questioning. And as I mentioned, it's the easiest technique, or the simplest technique, but one of the hardest to master. And so I want to step you through that process right now. Now, at the risk of some technical issues, I'd like to draw this up, if that's okay with you, Taki.
Yeah, man, totally.
I'm just going to see how this is going to play out, because I've had a couple of little issues with this in the past. But let's just see.
So we've got options. Option 1, let's go with your Marcus draws plan. Option 2, I can draw if you need me to, if it all goes to hell.
Yeah. Let's give this a try and see what happens. Is this going to work or is it not? Not at the moment, Taki.
Cool. What am I drawing,
So,
Marcus?
yeah. So,
is it too complicated to explain?
Yeah, it might be. That's why I'm trying to look at drawing it myself. So, yeah, but I just don't want to muck around with it, that's all. It's not wanting to come up. I've actually got it in a slide anyway, but, love drawing these things because I think it'll bring it to life a little bit more effectively as we go through the process. So,
here's what we're going to do.
Yep.
I'd love you to close your Reflector app.
Yep.
We're going to do 30 seconds of tech support. So tell me when that's closed.
Let's do that. Yeah, it's decided to freeze itself.
Exactly. So now let's...
That's right. So we'll just rehash that open again, and that'll make it work. Cool.
In theory.
All right. We've got to love technology.
It's awesome.
All right. So let's make sure that's on. Here we go. We're going to see it now. You've got to love it when it works, right?
Is it working? I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure it is at your end.
Yeah, it's not playing nice right at the moment.
All right.
Let's see if we can get it to play nice right now. Here we go. Yes, there we go. Can you see it at your end?
Yeah, it's just come through. Perfect.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, so let's. All right, so if we were to draw up this process, one of the key things that we're looking to achieve is that we're looking to achieve, trying to get to either the core issue or the core insight. So I'm just going to call it issue at the moment. So this is the stuff that they really need to hear. It's the insight that they need. It's the core issue, the core thing that's stopping them from progressing. So what is it that's stopping them from achieving the things that they need? What's going to get in their road, or what's the things that are getting in their road? And this is where we're going to create an insight. But we have to get to that point. And the key here is to get to that point really, really fast. And so there's a process that we're going to follow to help us to get to this point, and it looks a little bit like a funnel. And so generally when we start a coaching session, it often starts quite broad, and this is where fluff, story stuff and script can start to play out. In that, sessions start quite broad, and what we want to do is we want to chunk it down till we get to this sort of point, which is the really core issue, the core thing that's going on for them. And so we want to sort of drive them down this funnel and into that insight, into that core issue. And the process that I use for this is called feedback loop questioning technique, and I see it a little bit like a dance, in that we're going to dance from one question to the next question. And if we do this right, it becomes this beautiful flowing dance that slowly but surely, well, not slowly, but gets them into this issue even before they actually know that they're there. Now, if you get this right, so when you sort of master this process, the time from zero to issue, and we sort of saw that last week when I think I was working with Nicole, wasn't I? Where we got to that core issue that she had in I don't know, a couple of minutes, if that. And so when you practice this, when you get really good at this, you'll go from, generally when people start this process, this can take anywhere from sort of 7 to 10 minutes. But once you master this skill, you can do this in, the fastest I've been clocked in a live event was 45 seconds. And so you can go from zero, what I call zero, you can go from zero to absolute core issue in under 1 minute. So once you master this. And so the process is really, really simple. I'm going to outline the process to you. Then I think Taki will do a live example. So we'll grab someone live and I'll actually do it with them, and I'll show you how the process works. But the process goes like this. So what we do is at the start of a session, we're going to ask a question. Yep. So here we're going to ask a question. We're then going to listen to the response. Yep. And we're going to ask a question, yep, based on that response. Yep. We're then going to listen to the answer. We're going to ask a question based on something within that response. Again, we're going to listen to the answer, ask a question based on something we hear in that response. reports. Okay, so I think the best way to outline this is to actually show it live. Mm-hmm. And so I think it would be really good to do this with someone. Now, when we're doing this process, there are a couple of rules that I use, and I'm going to outline those rules in a minute. But why don't we do this live so you can actually see how this works, and I'll draw it as I'm doing it. Now, remember, when we do this live, Taki, we're not coaching anyone per se. We're just practicing the skill of feedback loop questioning. So we're not trying to get to an issue. We're not trying to do it in 3 to 15 minutes. We're just I'm just going to show you how the process works. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds super clear. So what we want then is somebody who'd like to have a play with this. Now, is there any particular, how would we know that we're the right person to volunteer for this?
For this one, it doesn't really matter at all, because what we're doing is we're just going to do the skill. We're not trying to get an issue. I'm not going to start with what do you need right now. We're just going to start anywhere, and we're just going to have a play. So the aim of this, Taki, is just to play. So it's really whoever's interested in just having a chat.
Yeah. So who'd like to play this game? If you want to have a quick chat and do the feedback loop questioning, just do me a favor and raise your hand in the GoToWebinar control panel. That'd be super handy.
Here we go. Nicole's put her hand up.
Yeah, Nicole's put her hand up again, which is awesome, Nicole. I appreciate that a ton. Edward Plant. I might go to Ed because Nicole went last time. Nicole, appreciate you a ton. I'm going to mute me and unmute Edward. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's great.
Great.
All right.
Hey, Edward, you're on the line and I am out. Have fun, guys.
Hey, Edward, how are you?
Marcus, how are you? Good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. So thanks for volunteering.
My pleasure.
So let's just run this process really, really quickly and easily. And I'm just going to ask you some questions, and we're just going to play this out. We're not trying to get anywhere. We're not trying to uncover any issue. We're not trying to coach you. We're just going to play with the technique. Is that okay?
Yep, sounds great.
Yeah, fantastic. So again, we're not starting with what do we need, and so this is not how I start a coaching session, just so everyone's really clear, but it's how I teach people, and we play with this concept called feedback loop questioning. So as long as everyone's okay with that, that's what we're going to do. So please don't take these questions as what I do in a coaching session, because it's not. So Edward, let's have a look. So tell me a bit about your morning or afternoon. Whereabouts are you, by the way?
I'm on the Sunshine Coast this morning. I saw clients up here yesterday. Had stayed at my sister's place last night. She's away, so had a night to myself without kids waking me up this morning, and have had a sleep-in, breakfast and coffee. So I'm all
great. Good. Excellent, excellent. So tell me a bit about having a night to yourself.
So can you say that question again?
So tell me a bit about having a night to yourself.
Yeah, pizza, video, relaxed.
Yeah, excellent. And so do you get much of a chance to relax?
At the moment, I've been very busy and working quite long hours, so not recently.
Yeah, okay. So tell me a bit about being busy.
The key thing we've got on at the moment is we're running a ball for Gold Coast business owners. We've got about 150 people coming to it, and that's on in a week. So it's doing the bums on seats all the way through to, we're raising money for a charity as well. So it's our community giving for the year. So it's getting prizes, sponsorships, catering, music, band, casino tables, the whole works and jerks. So.
Yeah. So that's keeping you really busy.
Yeah, on top of the coaching and networking breakfast that we run.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a bit about So tell me about the on top of, and all the other stuff you're doing.
In terms of the coaching or the business networking?
Yeah, the coaching.
Yeah, so have been adjusting our model into a quarterly workshop, which is July. So all clients come in for a quarterly workshop, which frees up the month a lot more, which has been good. And have a signature 7-week signature course online with a new membership site, which is exciting. That got activated 10 days ago. And now doing prep videos for the clients that are coming to the workshops to do through the membership site to get them using that. The workshops next week, and had 3 or 4 new clients sign up over the last 6 to 8 weeks, which was good. And probably the challenge for me is doing that again in the next 6 weeks. From a continue to grow perspective.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about the challenge.
The challenge I've had at the moment is time to get into sales appointments and following up potential clients.
So tell me a bit about time.
Running stuff instead of... Tell you a bit about what, sir?
Time. Tell me about time.
So I've been working quite long hours when I've been working. We moved house last week as well, which sort of compounded the time challenge. What's the challenge with time for me? So the time of challenge over the last 3 days was I had a presentation to a organisation that had 60 staff members on Saturday morning, and then Thursday afternoon I had a half-day workshop with a number of directors from a business, and I sort of had a concept of what I was doing for them, but procrastinated a bit on doing the detail until Wednesday afternoon for actually preparing the presentation and preparing the workshop.
Okay, cool.
So stress because I was doing it at the last minute.
Yeah, no worries. Excellent. All right, great. So thank you for that. We'll stop the questioning now because there's a number of things that have come out of that I really want to identify for people. And so thanks heaps, Edward, for participating. I might get your feedback shortly about how that was being on the other end of the on the questioning end rather than being the coach. But right now, Taki, I'd just like to sort of just talk a bit about that process. And it was interesting with the delay that we had, but that was okay. I just want to go through that because I started drawing some things as we were playing, and so I just want to identify that if that's okay. Are you there, Taki? So while Taki gets his voice back, and I'm sure he can probably hear us, one of the things I just want to identify.
Hey, man.
There you are.
I'm back.
Well done.
Hey, mate, quick question. Just before you talk about what you just did, is it okay if I jump in for a sec?
Yeah, sure.
What I'd love to know, everybody, is what did you just notice Marcus did? What felt like the process? What did you notice apart from, ask a question, listen, ask another question? What did you notice? I'd love to kind of see if you had any insights or kind of noticed what he did or seemed to do, and then we'll kind of just check in. I think that'd be kind of useful because I noticed a bit of a pattern and I'd love to ask about it.
Great. Yeah, let's do that. That sounds great.
So what'd you notice? Do me a favour. You got 10 seconds right now? What'd you see? Please type into the question box for me. Nicole said he was picking keywords or notes of importance from his answers and then going deeper on those.
Yeah.
Raj said each answer provided a seed for the next question, though I had trouble following the direction or the goal of the questions. Yes, because the goal is different to how you think about the goal. Raj, great pickup.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Ian says you picked a keyword in the response and drilled down. Jeff says he dig deep. John, he picked keywords with emphasis or emotion behind them. Exactly.
Yeah, great. That's fantastic.
Super cool. Good pickup.
Yeah, great pickup.
It feels to me like you picked up the what The why might be a little unclear, so let's dig into those. Marcus, when you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and remember, we weren't trying to go anywhere. We weren't trying to get an issue or any of that sort of stuff. And what you might have noticed is we actually started to get there. We actually started to get closer to an issue, and we started to bump up against this thing I call the moment of truth. And I'm going to talk to you about that shortly. But what was happening throughout that process, and as you'll see on the diagram, I started drawing little black lines. And so what I started to do is in the process, I'm trying to tag keywords that are coming up as we're running through the questioning. So one of the things with this technique, and it's really simple, right? All you need to do is ask a question, listen to the answer, and ask a question based on a tag word you hear. Now, the cool thing about that is that it instantly stops you listening to the answer and starts getting you focused on listening to key words that are coming up. And when you do that, you stop playing in the answers, because what you'll find is there are two types of clients. There are clients who talk a lot and give you lots of juice in their answers, and there are clients who hardly say anything at all. Edward was more on the side of lots of, giving lots of, great stuff in his answers. But what you'll find is, as we were going through that, a lot of times we were starting to get into story stuff and script a little bit. Yeah, and it's not Edward's fault, and I'm not trying to bring this up as a fault or anything, so please don't take it that way, but we all do it. We all start to talk about the stuff, the story, and the script. And so what I'm looking for is absolute keywords. Now, in any answer, we're going to have a number of different keywords. And so with Edward's answers, there were a number of keywords we could have tagged onto, and this is what I call word tagging. And so we could have grabbed any of those tags. And the difference between 7 to 10 minutes from zero to issue or 45 seconds is the quality of the tag words that you identify. And it takes a little bit of training to get the right words, but someone did bring it up. Was it John who brought it up, saying that I was tagging words with the most energy associated with them? I think it was John that said that, wasn't it? Yeah. And so he's right on the money there. What I'm looking for is the energetic quality of the word, and what I'm wanting to find is the word with the most amount of energy around it. Now, as we were going through here, what we started to identify, and again, remember, we weren't trying to go anywhere, we weren't trying to identify an issue, but what started to come through was this word time. And so as we got through time, there's this relationship to time that possibly is something I would then go and further explore, because, the whole thing sort of started with, oh my God, I got a night to myself, and everything seems to be rushed and busy, and there's lots on, and it's trying to get everything done and trying to have enough sales calls, and so there's an issue related to time. And I dare say some of that has to do with, helping Edward remove a whole lot of fluff, story stuff and script from his relationship with time, potentially. Now, we didn't keep going on, so I can't say that that's exactly what it is, and I don't want to sort of, necessarily put that onto the conversation. But what you started to see was we started to funnel down into that issue, and through that, I'm starting to try and connect the dots, right? So I'm trying to connect these keywords as I'm doing now, as I'm drawing. I'm trying to connect the keywords that I came up with that is going to lead us into this core issue. So just trying to play with finding what are those keywords and what's the thread. So rather than listening to the story that's coming and listening to the conversation, what I'm actually starting to listen to is the dots. And so as I join the dots, I start to see that the image is an aeroplane and it's not a truck. And so it just starts to make this really beautiful pattern. And as we go back to reflect on it, if time happens to be a core issue, then we can start to join the dots and go, yeah, actually, that whole thing about, oh my God, I'm so busy, I'm glad I had a night off, the kids didn't bug me and all that stuff. And I totally get that, Edward. I got 3 kids, totally understand, I'm sure Taki would as well. And so, maybe it's not so much about, oh my God, I got to get away, got to get a rest, maybe it's more about, that relationship to time and how you play with time. And so that could be it. But the dots started to join that way. And so, yeah, it's this dot joining exercise. Now,
two things I noticed. So two insights I'd love to kind of make sure that get captured. The first one was I love the idea of not listening to the words, but listening for the dots. I think that's genius. So you're looking for the thread, right? The other thing that I noticed was not only did you ask a question, listen for their answer, listening for a word with some charge around it, and then ask a tag question about the word, but that you got to time by asking about something like the first question could have been anything.
Yeah, anything at all.
Yeah, so you start anywhere and you get to where you need to go. I thought that was genius. So I just wanted to kind of
So you know, that is the wonderful thing about this process is that you could theoretically start anywhere. You could start with, so how's your day going? How did you find getting here? You know, how was your weekend? You could start with that question we're telling you not to start with, which is, you know, how was your week, right? So you could do that. And using this process will speed up your sessions regardless of where you start. Now, if you then start with what do you need right now, then this process you'll easily get down to you know, under a minute to go from zero to issue. And so that's the key. But even though we weren't doing that, even though we went through, you know, we just asked that very open question to start with, you know, in the space of, I don't know how long we were doing it for, Taki, maybe a couple of minutes, we were certainly getting closer to a potential issue. And I didn't want to necessarily go into issue. I just wanted to show you the process, so we didn't keep going with that. Next week we will, but I just wanted to show you how that process goes. Now remember that at some point you're going to bump up against this thing called the moment of truth, which is this point, this line that I've drawn up there, which I call the moment of truth. This point here. And so one of the other things that lets coaches down a lot is that when they get to this moment of truth, when they hit up against this barrier, they bounce off and run away. Yeah, because generally this is the point where everybody gets really, really uncomfortable, and often coaches will avoid going there. Clients definitely don't want to go there, so clients definitely want to avoid breaking through this barrier. And a lot of coaches won't break through that barrier either. Now, I'm going to talk more about that barrier next week, but I just want to allude to it now, because what you might find is if you guys go out and practice this, what you might find is that you get to a point in the questioning where the client starts to feed back on themselves. So what happens here is at this moment of truth, they start to feed back on themselves, and they start to almost answer the same... Yeah, give the same answers they've given in the last couple of questions, and so they start to go round and round in circles, and that's a classic sign that you're bumping up against this moment of truth. Yep. Now the key with that is that you have to break through this if you're going to get to the issue, and I'm going to teach you techniques how to do that next week. I just wanted to bring it up now, Taki, just so that when people go out and practice, they get to this point and they feel like the system's failing them because they just feel like they're going round and round and round in circles. It's actually a really good thing when you do start going around in circles, because you know you're almost at it. You're almost at that key thing that they need to break through in this session. So just know that that's going to appear.
Mm-hmm.
So so again, you know, it's about, you know, identifying, you know, asking a question, listening to the answer, and then asking a question based on that answer, and just following this system. The great thing about this system is it's the safest system in the world to use as long as you follow the process exactly. It demands that you do a number of things automatically without having to think about it. It demands that you're very present. It demands that you're not thinking about the answer, not thinking about where this is going, and just have a really clear mind. It demands that you use active listening techniques, which is an important technique in the coaching process. And so it combines a whole lot of techniques in one really, really simple process. And that's the power of this. Yep. So then grab those tag words. Try and find the tag words within an answer. And you know, sometimes the people who talk a lot or give long answers are often the hardest to work with, because there's so many juicy things that you could grab hold of. And the art is about finding what is the absolute key thing that I need. Now, Taki, before people go out and practice this, there's a couple of rules I have with this that I just want to outline, if that's okay.
Yep, sure, 100%.
So the rules are, the first rule is never start a question with the word why. It's a really, really important rule. Never, ever use the word why. Now, the key reason we never start a question with the word why is because from a subconscious patterning point of view, when you use the word why, you back people into a corner, because when you were younger and you did something wrong, your parents or teachers pointed their finger at you and said, why did you do that? Taki, why did you do that? And so subconsciously we go into a defense mechanism. And so why questions back people into a corner and will give you often a one-word answer or no answer at all. So what we need to do is we need to get rid of our why questions from our vocabulary, remove it from the English dictionary because you don't need it, right? So you can ask questions for what reason or tell me more about, so you don't need to use the word why. That's the first rule. The second rule is try not to use the word feel. So how do you feel about that? Try to remove the word feel. And a lot of coaches don't use the word feel, but I just bring it up because what happens when we use the word feel is we drive people back into stuff, story and script, especially story. So remember, a story comes from that emotive brain. So what you'll do is you'll drive people into that. So don't use the word feel. Try and remove that. I'm not saying don't use it at all. The only time I will use it is to bookend a process. So how are you feeling at the moment? Rate that for me. And at the end of the session, how do you feel now? But that's the only time I would use it, if at all. The next rule is to make your question short and don't think about it. The cool thing about this, Taki, is the less you think, and theoretically, the stupider you are, the better this works, right?
So I'll do fine then. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, you'll be great at this, and I'm great at this as well because of that, right? But what I find is that coaches often try to have themselves feel good or bigger, and the longer your questions and the more smart your questions are, they're questions with big words and clever words. The more you do that, the less it works, and I think the less confident you are. So what it shows in a coach to me is that they have less confidence about what they're doing, and so therefore try to puff it up by asking long, complex questions. The shorter the question and the less complex, or the less you think about it, the better this is going to work, right? And that's a key. So your challenge is to ask as shorter questions as possible. Tell me about time, or even just using the word time. So time. Right, and you can, depending on how your inflection of the way you deliver it, it will come out as a question, right? So time, interesting. And then the final thing is you want to be joining the dots. Yep. And so that's the key. So we've obviously done our example. We talked a bit about the moment of truth, and we're going to go into that in much more detail next week, Taki.
Yep.
But this week, what I want people to do is to go out and practice the skill of feedback loop questioning. To go in and ask a question, listen to the answer, find a tag word, and just ask a question based on that tag word, and just keep going and see what happens. What I suggest at this point is that you guys try 3 or 4 questions and then go back to whatever you normally do until you've sort of learnt the whole process. But just start playing with this concept and see what happens. There's a little bit of faith that has to go into this because it feels like it could take longer to get to core issue because it doesn't feel like you're actually driving it, when really you are absolutely driving it and you're keeping it within this funnel. So have a play with it, and I'd love to see how that goes.
Love that, mate. Perfect. Super helpful. Okay, so here's what I'd love to do, if that's cool with you, Marcus. You've given some really, really clear homework. What I'd love to know is what's stood out for you from this session. What are the kind of the 1 or 2 or 3 biggest takeaways you got? And going to give you 20 seconds to type those in right now. I've got a few notes here that I'd like to share if it's cool with you. Is now a good time, Marcus?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so let me I'm going to take control of the screen and make presenter. Okay.
Perfect.
Just 1 second. Now my iPad's the one that's not showing. There we are.
I can't see anything at the moment, but that's
okay. Yeah, it's because I haven't clicked the yes button just yet. Show my screen. There we are. All right. So, right at the start, we talked about doing this gives you more capacity to kind of help more people. Secondly, it leaves you with more energy at the end because the client's working harder than you are, and neither of you is working that hard. You're kind of in it. And then secondly, it creates a bunch of momentum. we talked about how you start is how you finish your session. So the very first question is really, really important. This was kind of a little aside, but we talked about, can I try this? You know, get off your butt and stand up during your sessions. It'll give you a bit more energy, and you'll kind of be a little bit more in touch, I think, with your right brain. You mentioned there was kind of three brains, a mind brain, a heart brain, and a gut brain. And so this is about kind of tapping into all of them and not being stuck in logic brain up top.
Absolutely.
Moving clients out of chaos and into control was what it's really all about. But it wasn't about controlling the session and kind of sticking to a set agenda. It was more about controlling the context and making sure that they stayed out of stuckness and into managing state. So you talked about not controlling the outcome, but controlling the context. If people are stuck in stuff, story, and script, they're stuck. And the way out is to get them, is not to kind of work on those strings, but to kind of manage state and get them, into something else. There's a framework that I heard a coach use a while ago that's been helpful for me, where he just said, is that interesting or is it useful? And people go, well, it's probably just interesting. Great, well, let's move on to something else. You mentioned that you're a coach, not a counselor, so it's not about, digging deep and healing their past, their kind of their childhood. It's about kind of moving people forward. You talked about, as a coach, the key is kind of having strong boundaries. And if somebody kind of on a sports field, by the way, if you're in North America, this is an AFL, Aussie rules field, or my bad memory of. But if somebody steps out of the boundaries, well, there's kind of natural consequences. The game stops and we fix it. So just like that, if we've got clear boundaries in our coaching conversations, then we can move people, we can go, hey, that's not how we do things. Let's get back on track. This was really interesting for me. When people, and it made a ton more sense when we did the demo with Ed, whatever they say is like the blah, blah. You're not really listening to what they're saying, because it's often not about what they think they need, but it's about what they really need. And so this is more about listening for the dots than the words. It kind of makes sense to me now. This was the kind of my first thoughts about feedback loop questioning, is kind of you ask a question, listen, and kind of tag a word to pop an insight at the end. And it really landed more like this at the end. Listening for the dots was a kind of a massive idea. And I love the idea of looping, which I saw with Ed. We kind of came back to the same issue a couple of times, that if you had wanted to, we could take us to the next step. It was awesome. So I just want to say thank you. That was really helpful for me. What I'd love to see is kind of what other people have typed in. Jackie says, feedback loop questioning seems so simple and gets really deep really quickly. Awesome. Identifying the energy and the emotion in the words, says Ian. Carla says, the power of the first question with the intention of identifying tag words. Raj asked an interesting question before about, will the word with the most energy necessarily correlate to the best goal or what they really need, or might it just be what most excites the client right now? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah. So what will happen is the words with the with the most amount of energy will lead to whatever that issue is. Yeah, and it's not just about words that excite people, right? So the energy could be the lowest, like really, it could be low energy word. It could be a high energy word. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's just going to be what excites them at all. So we're not necessarily looking for passion per se. We're looking for the word that has the biggest energy imprint. And you used a word before, Taki, which I think was even more appropriate than energy, because I don't want people to get confused. But this is not about.
I think I used the word charge.
Charge. That's it. Charge. With the most charge. Now that could be a positive charge or a negative charge, right? So it's not just what excites them. I think that's the key. Yeah.
Big key for me was these last pieces, particularly about ask short questions and don't think. Often we try to be clever, and so we're trying to kind of, ask the perfect question that magically sets up the need and pops the insight, but really we're just going to ask the obvious question. So tell me about time. Tell me about overwhelm.
Yeah.
And see where that goes. And the moment you kind of turn your brain off, it's like I was chatting with Adam at one of the $1 Million Coach Intensives, and I've just done session one. I was on the first break, and I said, so mate, how are we going? Is there anything I need to do more of or less of, or keep in mind? He goes, don't think, just do. It's like, awesome, great advice. That's what this is about. It's just about be like a kid and ask the question that comes to the tip of your tongue first. Love that.
Yeah, yeah.
So can you just do a quick minute on what happens next in 2 weeks when we do our last session? How are we going to kind of turn this into insight and action for people?
Yeah, fantastic. So, so in the next session, what we're going to do is we're going to finish the flight plan, right? So we're going to go through the whole, finish the system, and we're going to do a, complete session. And so what we're going to do next week is look at going through the moment of truth, breaking into insight and getting that really, really quickly, and then popping out the other side at the other end of moment of truth, and really landing our sessions so that we're telling them, prescribing what they need to do. So we're going to finalise the point next week. We're going to make sure we align them with that by bringing awareness, insight, and the aha moment for them. And that's in that issue section. That's where the insight's going to come. And then we're going to pop out the other side. So there'll be another like moment of truth stroke there. And then we're going to pop out the other side with giving them a really great prescription on the game that they're playing. So, perfect, Taki. And so then we're going to come out through...
I'm thinking up what you're putting down, Marcus, just so you know.
Yeah, brilliant. So thanks, mate. And so we're going to feedback loop out as well, but we're going to look at, okay, now we should know what game they're playing, and we should then be able to prescribe, right, by getting them to realise what's really going on, getting them to look at what they need to solve and how they need to solve it, and the 3 key actions that they're going to take from that. And so next week we're going to complete this whole drawing, and then we're going to overlay the blueprint so you can see what happens in each section. And we're going to look at the time frame it's going to take to go from one end of this journey to the next. And they're going to bounce out the other end really clear with what they need to do, with an amazing insight, and you're going to create huge value for your clients.
Love that, mate. Super, super helpful.
Cool.
Dude, super, super cool. Really, really stoked. Firstly, I want to say thank you so much. This is brilliant, really helpful. We've spent a ton of time on, on 1/3 of this page right now, but if you get this right, the rest will just pop, as we'll find out in 2 weeks' time. Now, so that was first thing, thank you. Second thing is congrats on the book. I know that it's just being printed as we speak, and I can't wait. So the moment it's ready, let me know and I'll make sure everybody knows. Thirdly, I know that just after Black Belt in Sydney on probably the 2nd and 3rd of August, you're going to be running 3-minute coach training. If anybody wants to do it, I highly recommend it. If you want to get your session times down, it's been crazy helpful for us in terms of delivering real, solid, result-based value to 150, 160 clients. So if that's helpful for you, you should check it out. Probably the best way to do that is just to hit Marcus up on Facebook or email him, and it's marcus@marcusbird.com. Is that right?
Yeah, .com.au.
Perfect. Let me write that down because I know people will ask if I don't. Marcus@marcusbird.com. So just flick him an email and say, tell me more about the training, and he'll get you all the details rather than do that in this format. Mate, thank you a ton. This has been awesome. I don't know if you heard the Hawaiian maid pop in and say, aloha, are you ready to check out now? I don't know if you heard that, but she's just knocking on the door. I got a boogie. This has been a real pleasure, and I'm going to take the kids off to the Disney resort right now. Thanks, everybody. It's been really fun.
See you guys.
Cheers, mate. I totally will. Take care, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Ian saying, I missed last week's session. Is it possible to access it? Yes. Ian, just jump onto the Facebook group and search for 3-Minute Coach, and you'll see the link. Jeff says, thank you. Ian says, thanks. All right, guys. Well done, guys. Take good care. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers again, Marcus. Appreciate your help.
Thanks, man. See ya. Bye.